Well, good evening. At this time, I would like to introduce Nelson Boyer, Chairperson of the New Hanover County Schools Calendar Committee, to open the meeting. Mr. Boyer.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Parents, family, faculty of Snipes and Freedom. We are meeting tonight in unprecedented and challenging times. And I want you to know that as we move forward with this discussion and over these next few months, the safety and well-being of your children, of our students, will remain our absolute top priority. I know it's easy to think of a calendar discussion as a simple conversation about when school starts. But as we move forward over these next 2 years, we have to look at how we best engage our students who have lost 25% of their last 2 years due to Hurricane Florence and now due to COVID-19. So I want to thank Dr. Smith and the entire administration for putting this conversation together. We welcome the feedback. We thank you again for joining us. And Dr. Smith, providing information with regards to the calendar legislation that has caused this meeting tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Again, welcome to our families from Snipes Academy of Arts and Design and from the Rachel Freeman School of Engineering. My name is LaShawn Smith, and I am the Deputy Superintendent for New Hanover County Schools. Also with us this evening, I am sure that we have many other members of our calendar committee on the line. This evening, families will have the opportunity to post their questions in the chat box that will be moderated by Ms. Dawn Brinson, our Assistant Superintendent for Technology and Digital Learning. For those questions we are not able to answer tonight, we will research and share the answers with your principals so that they can share back with families. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to overview the new calendar legislation, share a draft calendar, and answer questions that families and staff may have, as well as to gather your input so that the district can design a calendar that best meets your needs and the needs of your students. To begin, on the slide that is on the screen, I have shared the changes in calendar law that are applicable to your school. First, the calendar must have 215 days for staff. This includes holidays, work days, and vacation or annual leave days. There must be 190 student or instructional days, and this can be achieved either through 185 days plus 5 days or 1,025 instructional hours plus an additional 5 student days. So districts have the option of either meeting the number of days requirement plus 5 days or meeting the number of hours requirement plus 5 days. The draft that we will share with you tonight meets the number of hours requirement plus the additional 5 days for students. The items on this slide that have been stricken do not apply to restart calendars. Here we have a draft of the calendar for next year. And I want to thank Ms. Manning for all of her input and Ms. Cherry Smith for putting this together. With this draft, there are 180 student days, 6 teacher work days, 11 holidays, 10 vacation days, 5 remote learning days, and 3 professional development days. clicking on the link now so that we can see the calendar even more closely. Let's look at a larger version of the same draft. The first day for teachers would be July 28th. And the first day for students would be August 4th. The first day for remote learning would be September 16th. And the end of the first grading period would be September 25th. Intersession would be from September 29th through October 9th. The second day of remote learning would be October 28th. The second grading period would end December 18th. Students would return from the winter break on January 5th. With their third remote learning day on January 4th. The fourth remote learning day would be on February 10th. And the third grading period would end March 5th. With the fifth and final remote learning day on March 10th. Unlike in the past, spring break / intersession would not immediately follow the end of the third grading period. Spring break intersession would begin March 22nd. Students would return from spring break on April 6th. The last day of school would be June 10th. The last day of school, the last day for teachers would be June 14th. So this is just simply a draft proposal. And at this time, we would welcome your comments and feedback and questions in the chat box. If you'd like for me to review any other aspects of the calendar, or if you have suggestions, then we definitely welcome those comments. If you like the calendar as it is proposed, we'd welcome that feedback as well. If you're having difficulty finding the chat box, more likely than not, it's at the bottom of your screen. Looks like a dialog box. And it may have the word chat underneath. I know more folks are joining the meeting now. And just to recap, I've overviewed the draft calendar. That is what's on the screen right now. And we're asking for feedback. So we welcome feedback, whether you have questions, comments. You can also let us know if you like this calendar, if you have concerns about the start date, the end date. The start date will be before August 17th, correct? The traditional calendar that the district is proposing, the start date would be on August 17th. Another question, what age group does this apply to? Why not start in September? This applies to all students that attend Snipes and all students that attend Freeman. It has not been suggested to us that we start in September. We surely can take that back to the calendar committee. What is the logic rationale for scheduling spring break following the third 9-week period? What I can say about that or in regards to that is typically how it has been done in the district. That does not mean that that practice has to continue. We surely can look at that in terms of what would be the preference for the families that attend Snipes and Freeman. Thank you for that suggestion. This is remote learning, correct? Not in-school learning. We are building this calendar out for face-to-face instruction. We are anticipating this being face-to-face. Now, we do not believe that it's going to look exactly as it did this past school year prior to March 13th. And we're not completely sure what that will be, but the calendar is designed for face-to-face instruction. There are remote learning days built into the calendar. Those would be the days that are in green and have the ring, the square around them. I'm not sure if it appears black on your screen or possibly dark blue. Thank you for those comments. Thank you for those questions. Would love more. It's starting in July, safe for staff members and students in, let's see, starting July, safe for staff members and students in early August for face-to-face instruction. What I can say in regards to that is that we will be following the recommendation in terms of CDC guidelines and what directions we receive from our public health department. And we would be in compliance with whatever orders are in place in the state of North Carolina in regards to COVID-19 at that time. Why would we begin before August 17th start? That is just simply the recommendation from the folks who have submitted their input thus far. There is the opportunity to start later. There is the opportunity for the school to follow the traditional calendar. We just need to gauge the interest and the support of the families in order to be able to make this determination. Would this calendar still hold if we cannot go back to school on August 4th? We would have to revisit the calendar if there were some reason why schools could not resume August the 4th. But we would revisit that calendar. What is the purpose of remote learning days for students? The remote learning days are actually built into the legislation. So that means that students would be home learning remotely on those days. It is my understanding that those days were built in specifically to provide the practice and the experience for students in the event that we may have to resume remote learning on a larger scale. That's my opinion and my understanding of why those days were legislated and have to be built into the calendar. Another question, are inclement weather days built in? The inclement weather days are not identified. Every day has a purpose. But what we're looking at, and we've had more conversation in regards to the traditional calendar than the restart calendar, is elongating the days slightly, possibly 5 minutes, possibly 10 minutes, to gain some additional time. And with that additional time, we would not have to make up days that were missed due to inclement weather, as long as it was not an excessive amount of time. And so by increasing the day by 5 minutes, I think we end up gaining maybe 2 to 3 days, and increasing it by 10 minutes, I think we gain an additional 4 hours in terms of time that we could, 4 days in terms of time that we would not have to make up. So if we were out of school for 4 days and our school day had been over the school year increased by 10 minutes, then we would not have to make up those 4 days missed to be in compliance with the law. What if parents don't feel safe sending their school students back at that time? I think that is a concern of many parents. And I think, that's a decision that parents are going to have to make. At the time, I believe that there is still so much that is unknown, and at the time that the calendar begins, we as a system will ensure that we are in compliance with all the requirements, as I said before, in directions from public health. And also, it's important for parents to know that student safety, staff safety, is our first concern. So we would not create a situation or obligate our students to attend in an environment that we did not believe was safe. This is for kindergarten and preschool, or just kindergarten. This would be the calendar essentially for our pre-K as well. Their calendar is slightly different in that sometimes they might have additional days for training, or if it's a half day for the district that then they don't attend. But for the most part, this is the calendar that they would follow, and this is the calendar that their calendar would be developed upon. What if staff do not feel safe returning in July? Will the students be required to wear masks? Do not know the answer as to whether students will be required to wear masks. And if staff do not feel safe returning in July, I think this is a question that companies and organizations and school systems across the state are going to have to answer to and be ready to respond to. And I'm sure that there will be some additional guidance coming to districts from the state in regards to that. SNIPE starts 15 minutes earlier than other schools. Does that extra time count toward potential makeup days? It surely could. It may be, depending on what time SNIPES ends. If SNIPE starts 15 minutes earlier, but they dismiss 15 minutes earlier, then their time would equalize with other schools. But if SNIPE starts 15 minutes earlier and goes 15 just as long as other schools, say for instance dismissing at 2:30, then there would be the opportunity to count that time as well. If parents don't want to send their child to school, what type of instruction requirements would be expected of the teacher for those said students? Again, that is an area that we would need to receive some guidance from the state in regard to how we would address if parents chose not to send their children back to public schools. I really appreciate all the questions and the comments and the suggestions. Any additional suggestions in regards to the calendar in terms of start date, where spring break falls, any of those suggestions? We welcome all of them. Would I go over the calendar again, please? Glad to. Okay, let me move this out the way. Okay. So starting at the top, you see that the first day for teachers would be July 28th, and the first day for students would be August the 4th. The first day for remote learning would be September the 25th. Excuse me, September the 16th, I apologize, September the 16th. And the end of the first grading period would be September the 25th. Intersession would be from September the 29th through October the 9th. The second day of remote learning would be October 28th. The second grading period would end on December 18th. And of course, these days represent the 2 days for Thanksgiving holiday. This is a vacation day for teachers. This is another holiday, Veterans Day. And then this is a teacher work day that we typically take off because of elections. Students would return from winter break on January 5th. With their third remote learning day being on January 4th. The fourth remote learning day would be on February 10th. And the third grading period would end on March 5th. And the fifth and final remote learning day would be on March 10th. And unlike the spring break intersession in the past, it would not immediately follow the end of the third grading period. Spring break would begin on March 22nd. Students would return from spring break on April 6th. And the last day of school would be June 10th. And the last day for teachers would be June 14th. And there's a key at the bottom. So if you see this blue diamond, it is for holidays. This symbol is for designated teacher work days, undesignated teacher work days, half days, intersession days, vacation days, first day of school. This represents professional development, remote learning days, interim report cards, or interim reports, excuse me, staggered enrollment, and then report cards. And staggered enrollment is what we have for our kindergartners when they first come to us. And actually, I'm going to back up just a little bit. And just as a reminder, there are 180 student days in this calendar. There are 6 teacher work days, 11 holidays, 10 vacation days, 5 remote learning days, which also can be used as teacher work days, as well as days that teachers take annual leave if they've met their obligation for remote learning. And then 3 professional development days. And so I think we've got some more questions in the chat, so we'll go to that. Will teachers be allowed to wear masks when school begins? Again, I don't know of any guidance at this point that would restrict that, but we would be following the guidance at the time. For me, just to simply answer that question would be just for me to speculate. But I don't, I can offer you my opinion. I don't know officially what the direction will be that will be given from the district or the state or the public health department. But I do believe it would be reasonable expectation that there would be some preventative practices in place, and I think it would be reasonable to expect that masks would be a part of that. But again, that will come to us officially from either guidance that we have from the state or from public health. What is the logic of having remote learning days on Wednesdays? It appears to break up the continuity of the week. Just a thought. This was suggested to us by the school. We surely can revisit that in terms of whether it would be more beneficial for remote learning days to be positioned differently within the calendar. Thank you for that. Additional questions, comments, feedback? So if masks are required by New Hanover County Schools, would district be provided by the, would the district provide the, I'm sure the question is, would the district provide the mask? Again, this would be speculation on my part. I would say to you just simply my opinion that if it's being required by the district, then the district would make them available to employees. But again, that is just simply my opinion. I noticed that we've had just a couple of folks sign on a little bit later. Don't know if they have any questions or concerns or anything that they would like to share. Okay, if not, then what I'd like to do is to thank. Well, I think we've got one more question. Don't want to cut anyone off. Let's see what that question is. What type of training would be required for teachers? Do not know that at this time. Are we considering any kind of stagger with grade levels to decrease the amount of students in the building at one time? Again, not sure what that will be. We will take our guidance from the state and also public health as to what's required at that time. But I do appreciate both of those questions. And thank you. We've got a comment. I think the calendar is good overall. We appreciate that, but we're definitely looking at ways that we can improve it. So we appreciate your feedback. We really do. Thank you for all your comments and questions. We will take these back as we continue the calendar development process and work to bring a recommendation to the board soon. I would I'd like to turn it over to our committee chairperson, Mr. Beaulieu, to close.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smith, and thank you everybody for joining us again. I hope that this information is helpful to you. We want to get as much information to you as quickly as possible, and we definitely want it to be accurate. We definitely appreciate your feedback, and we will work to incorporate it where possible into our calendar. And we look forward to bringing you an update as soon as the board gets the recommendation and passes a calendar for what we hope will be a very productive and exciting 2020-2021 academic school year. Thank you guys very much.